Hi guys, so welcome back to our tutorials. In today's tutorial, we're going to create this profile header. So this profile header using HTML and CSS. So let's get started. So on my bottom part of the video, you can see I have a blank HTML template and as well as a blank CSS template. So what we are going to do is that we're just going to first link the CSS file and then make sure the href points to the file name that you want to link. And since mine is still on the same folder, then that's when I can just use its name. Right, so the next thing is that I want us to use Google Fonts. So I'm going to open fonts.google.com. The font I want specifically is Poppins font. So you just open Poppins, then click Get Font here on the bottom, get embed code, and then you're going to remove all the other fonts if you do have. If you don't have, you can continue. And then we can edit this and just select 400, 500. I don't also want italic, so I don't need them. Okay. And then now you can come here to the import and copy the import URL like so. And then let's add some default CSS style. So we make the margin 0, padding 0, and a box sizing of border box. So these are just basic default CSS styles. All right. So the next thing we need to do is to start creating this. So what you can realize is that we do have icons. So we are going to use Font Awesome for the icons. So firstly thing we need is the CDN to Font Awesome CSS. So you can just go here and say CDN JS Font Awesome. And then when you reach here, you'll see the links to the Font Awesome CDN library. You just click on copy and then paste it on your head like that. And then let's go back. The next thing is that let's now go to the Font Awesome website to get the fonts. And then as it's loaded, so just open the Font Awesome website. We are going to use that for the fonts. And then let's now start creating this. So we are going to create a div with a class of profile because this is a profile header. And then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to divide this profile into two sections. So the left-hand section and the right-hand section. So the left-hand section, I'm going to give it a class of personal because this one looks to have personal information. And then we are going to start with the in image. So you just follow along with this element. So we're going to start with an image. And then the source of the image is that. So I'm going to use a placeholder source image. So let me show you in the browser. This is a placeholder source image. So if I change here to 3, you can see you're getting new images. It's called pravata.cc. And it has placeholder thumbnails or profile pictures. All right. So the next thing is that we have the image now. Let's create this heading. So I'm going to use a heading level 3 for this. So you just come here and say heading level 3. So heading level 3, and then we call it meta mask. And then we continue this. We can use a paragraph and we can give it a class of username. So we can say .p.username, and then we say at meta mask. And then we continue to the description. So we can create another paragraph with the class of description. And then we paste that in. All right. And then we reach a point whereby we need to add the icons. So we are going to create a socials div. So we can say socials. Then inside the socials is where we are going to add these icons. So let me go back to Font Awesome. The first icon we want is the X or Twitter. So we just come here to Font Awesome and search Twitter. And then something else you might notice, you need to use the free icons. So you don't go to the pro icons, you'll have to pay. So go to the free icons, click, and then copy the icon name, and then come and paste the first icon. Let's go to the second icon, is the LinkedIn icon. You just come here and search LinkedIn, and then copy the LinkedIn link, copy, and then we paste. The next one is Ethereum. This is the Ethereum icon. So we go back here and search for Ethereum. So this is the Ethereum icon. Just click on it, copy it, and paste it. Finally, we have the GitLab icon. So we go back and search for GitLab. And then this is the GitLab icon. Just copy it and paste it. And you're done in that section. So that section is done with. So we are done with the left hand section. So we can collapse these and go ahead and create the right hand section. I'm going to call the right hand. I'm going to give it a class of statistics or stats. So this is the right hand section, and it starts with another div. So I'm going to display this. So let's first create a div called organization. So we go orgs. Inside the orgs, we'll have the top div and this bar. All right. So the top div and this bar. So we are going to say inside the orgs, let's create a div that will hold a paragraph, and this one says 6 out of 8 organizations. And then at the end, we have an icon, which is a circle info icon. So we just come back to Font Awesome, search for info. Then you can see the icon here. Don't go to the pro icons, you'll have to pay. So you just click here and then copy as I showed you. And then you can close that now and come here and paste it. And then below the orgs, so what I'm thinking is that the orgs is this whole section. And this section has another section on top of it, which has 2 elements. And then on bottom, it has another element. So below here, we are going to create a div with a class of slider, which will hold our slider. Then after the orgs, let's create the followers. So we go, so after the organizations, let's now collapse the organization. And then here, let's create the dot followers. Followers. And then the followers has a paragraph on top of it, which says, which has a span inside because we have to make it a little bit broader than the rest. So, okay. And then outside the span, we can add followers. And then after that, after the followers, we have a button that says follow. And then let's go live with this news and see what we do have. So this is what we have. So we are going to style this and make sure it looks exactly as what we wanted. So the first thing I'm going to do is that the image is too large. So I'm going to limit the width of the image from the HTML. So I'm going to say width 70. All right. And then the next thing is now we go to the body, we go to the styles, start styling the body. We can say body, display flex on the body, and then justify content to the center. We want the content to be in the middle. And then let's add some paddings on the body to make sure that these elements are not too close to the edges. So we can say padding to rem. That looks nice. The next thing, let's first grab the profile and let's limit set width to around 450 pixels. All right. And then let's add some background color here. So you can say background color #FF F9 F2. You can see the background color. So let's go to the body and add a background color as well. So you can say background color to the body is #E0 E0 E0. All right, and then now you can see the card a little bit nicer. So let's add some paddings to the card. You can see everything is too close to the edges. So you can come here and say padding 1 rem. You can see now we get some breathing room. Let's make sure these edges are not too sharp. So we just use border radius of 5 pixels. And then in the card, we said you have two sections, the left hand section and the right hand section. So we are going to display these sections flex. So the profile, it has to display these sections flex. So we say display flex there. And then you can see now the right hand content goes to the end. And then let's give them a gap. We can say a gap of maybe 2 rem. All right. And then since we have two sections here, the personal section and this other section we called the statistics, I think. So you have the personal and the statistics. So this is the personal sections and the stats section. So on the personal section, so let's go to the personal section. So we want this section to be the exact same width as the right hand section. So what we can do is that we can say flex 1, and then you also need to grab the stats and do flex 1 as well. And then now they'll take each the same space in the card available. So in the personal, something else we need to do now in the personal is that the personal is this left hand section. So we can display flex here and then flex direction column. And then let's add some gaps 0.2 rem. Then you can see we get some gaps here. It's not quite much, but it's okay. We can also do 0.3. All right. So the next thing we need to act on is now this username. So we give it a class of username. So if I go back here, you can see we give it a class of username. So if we go back now, we can grab the username. So we can say dot username, and then let's make the font weight of 500. And then let's reduce the font size to something like 0.8 rem. All right. So there's an issue. Let's see whether the name matches. So let's go here and say username. So here, username. So I don't know why the font weight is not working. So let's do 600. Okay, so I also remember something. We did not add the font family and the body. So we can say font family is Opins and as a fallback sans serif. All right, and then you can see the card now looks a bit nicer. So let's grab the stats. So the stats is this right hand section. We also need to display it flex, but vertically. So we can say display flex here. And then flex direction of column and justify content, the center. That's where the content gets. All right. So the next thing is that inside the start, we have two elements. We have the organization and the followers. So if you go back to the stats, these are the stats here. We have the organization and the followers. So we need to give this equal width. So we can just do orgs and followers. So we can do dot orgs flex 1 and then dot followers flex 1 as well. So this one makes sure that each element takes up its full width. So if I give a color here, background color of red and here blue, you can see they took each its own width, its own height. So then next up, now we have those like that. The next thing is that now this, we need to align it in the middle of itself. So how we can do that is in the args. So in the args, we can display flex as well. Can display flex there. And then flex direction column. So we still want to retain the column bit. And then before we continue, we need to capture the slider. So let's first capture the slider. So we can say dot slider. So the slider is this section here. The args, and then we have the slider. So we have this top section and the slider. So let's first work on the slider. We can give it a background color of #FF922D. And then a height of 0.5 rem. A width of let's do 100% for now. And then a border radius of 5 pixels. You can see that. So we can give this a color of gray. Let me show you how. And then we can say dot slider before. So we can give it position absolute, and the parent, we give it a position relative, and then a content of an empty content, and then a height of 100% and a width of 80% and a background color, the color I pasted here. And then here we can go ahead and say overflow hidden. All right, and we can create, in just a few seconds, we created a slider or a progress bar. I think it's called a progress bar. So let's focus on now the organizations and then the div. So this is the div I'm talking about. So the organization and then this div. It has two elements. We need to display them flex as well. So we can say .orgs and then the direct child div display flex, and then justify content space between like that, and then align items to the center. All right. And then now in the args, we can give a gap of 0.5 rem. All right. And then you can see it. It looks a bit nice. Let's capture this paragraph. So as we are inside the div, so we can say args direct child div direct paragraph. We can give it a font size of 0.7 rem. How did I get that? So I just did .orgs direct child div. We only have one direct child. So args. Instead of doing this, we could do first child. I don't. Let's do. So the first child is not working. I don't know why. And the child 1. So just first grab the first child. Let's see the signature of this. So first child. Or is it a function? So let's see. First child CSS. So this is how you do some debugging. Let's see. So we did it correctly. So okay, consider so let's give it a class instead of issues. Let's give it let's give it because we have two divs. I didn't want to display flex on a div that isn't there. So let's give it a class of, you can't use, we have organizations. Let's do orgs start. Let's use this. So we can just copy this down and then grab it as so. And then here we do like that. We save. So .org starts. So we add a dot. And then let's continue. So we have that section there. So we also reduced the font sizes width. So the next section you need to work on is these followers. So we can go and select the followers. We have the followers selected here. We display flex as well to them. And then we want to put it at the end. We want to put it here, somewhere here. So we can say, let's add some gaps between them. So gap 0.4 and then the flex direction is column. Yeah, just like that. And then now we can capture the button specifically by saying dot followers and then the pattern. The first thing is the background color. We have hash 14 3D. Let's add some color to it. So we can say color of white, padding. Let's do 7 pixels, 12 pixels. Border radius of 5 pixels, 5 pixels. And a border of none. We don't want a border on it. Okay. And then now in the followers, we need to capture the span. So this is the span we added prior. So the followers, we can capture the span. So it's in a paragraph. So we can just do dot followers. We can do dot followers. And then we capture the direct child paragraph and then span. We just increase its font weight to 600. And then you can see the font weight has been added as we expect. So the next thing we need to do now is we want to get this exact. So let's first also go back to the left hand side, which was the personal. And then in the personal, we need to capture the description. This is the description. So we can just do dot description. We just reduce its font size 2.7 rem. And then you can see it looks nice. So these icons already look as we would expect them to. So I'm not going to touch those icons. So I think these icons already look nice, but we could capture them by capturing the dot socials. So they're in a div called socials. So we can make sure they are all aligned. So we can say socials display flex and then align items center. Then let's add some gap of maybe 0.2 rem. All right, so that is nicer. In the finished version, this section is in the middle. So to make sure this section is in the middle, we go back now and grab the organization. So the .orgs, and then we justify content to the center. And then you can see it there. And then now let's go to the followers. And then in the followers, I think we need to capture the followers paragraph. But I think it looks nice. So let's see the finished version. So we need to justify the followers to the end. So what we could do now is, so the followers are inside the organization. Let's see. No. So we have the stats and the followers are a child of the stats. So we can go to the stats and try to justify the content to, okay, so the dot followers span and then the dot followers. So we can go to the followers and then we want it to be here in the bottom. So we can give it a margin top. Auto means take as much margin on the top as you would wish. And also let's align self to the end like that. So the margin top auto is not working. So we can justify the content to the end. So justify to the end. And then we got the required solution. So that's it, guys. That's how you can create such a profile header. Make sure you like, follow, and share with your friends. And also comment something or any comment you'd like to share. Thank you for watching and have a good one.